Okay, so this is going to be part one of the Vietnam War, and this is just kind of a very general, brief overview. Vietnam is very complex. If you're looking for something a little bit more in depth, if you have Netflix, I would highly recommend Vietnam. It's a Ken Burns documentary. I believe it's 6 parts. Each kind of part varies in terms of time. Some are like an hour, some are an hour and a half, but it gives you a really good sense as to why the Vietnam War actually happened. So again, this is just going to be kind of a quick and brief overview, but if you want something more in depth, I would highly recommend that Vietnam documentary by Ken Burns on Netflix. So to understand the Vietnam War, we kind of have to go back. So in the 1850s, France is going to gain control of Vietnam. They essentially become what we would call a colonial power, very similar to what the British were when they initially founded North America. Well, they didn't find North America, but before the United States became the United States, their colonial power was the British. And during the 1850s, France is going to have the same control over the area of Vietnam as the British did over the area that is now the east coast of the United States of America. And during World War I, when that officially breaks out, Ho Chi Minh, who's really going to become the leader of Communist Vietnam, or North Vietnam, however it is that people choose to refer to it, when he's in France during World War I, he sees the Bolshevik Revolution breaking out in Russia, and he sort of realizes that there is a way for the Vietnamese to get out of French control. And as a result, he ends up turning communist. And so by 1954, General Giap, and I'm totally probably mispronouncing his name, who was a communist, is going to force the French to leave Vietnam. To give you a little bit of context as to how that actually happens, during World War II, we know that Mussolini from Italy, Hitler from Germany, and then essentially Hideki Tojo, who was like the lead general in Japan, are going to join forces that become known as the Axis powers. And in 1940, the French, for the most part, are going to fall to Germany. When that happens, the French, because they fall into Germany, they're not preoccupied with all the other territories that they have, including Vietnam. And so what that does is it kind of leaves Vietnam almost like that open door kind of canvas. But because, Vietnam was in Asia, when Japan starts taking over, they're also going to gain some control into Vietnam. But by August of 1945, we know that Japan is going to end up losing World War II and surrendering once the 2 atomic bombs get dropped on them by the United States of America. So by 1945, neither the French or the Japanese have control of Vietnam, and this kind of gives Vietnam an opportunity to seek independence. And so by 1954, they're eventually able to get the French out of Vietnam, and Ho Chi Minh is going to be able to really take over as leader, especially in the north. So why exactly does the United States get involved in Vietnam? When we look at the story of the Vietnam War, you have to look at it in the context of the Cold War. The Cold War breaks out in 1949, and again, the Cold War was between the United States and the Soviet Union. Although an actual war never broke out between the two, they are going to have some kind of fighting between communist and capitalist ideals. We're going to see that in 1950 to 1953 in the Korean War, when North Korea becomes communist, South Korea is essentially capitalist. We're going to see it again in Vietnam. North Vietnam is going to turn communist, and South Vietnam is essentially going to remain capitalist. The reason the U.S., of course, gets involved is this idea of containment. This became part of the Truman Doctrine, is that we do not want communism spreading, so we have to be able to contain it. Essentially, containment is going to kind of work in Korea because they split at that 58th parallel. They're still like that today, but in Vietnam, they can see that communism is starting to grow and take over, and they want to prevent Vietnam from turning completely communist, which is why the U.S. ends up getting involved. It's considered one of the longest wars in American history. Kind of U.S. involvement is really from 1955 to 1973. But even involvement in Vietnam even stems before that. Even, under Truman. Truman was sending money to the Vietnamese in hopes that communism was not going to spread throughout the nation. So Vietnam, once Ho Chi Minh sort of takes over, let me kind of backtrack a little bit. But by 1954, essentially, communism is starting to spread in Vietnam. And North Vietnam, if you look at the little graph right here, especially this orange area, Ho Chi Minh has officially gained control. Like I said, Ho Chi Minh was in France during World War I. He saw the Russians have their own revolution, and that's when he decided to turn communist. Initially, he actually turned to the United States for support, really thinking that the United States was going to support him. Ho Chi Minh was very much inspired by Jefferson. When he claims sort of North Vietnam's independence, he quotes Jefferson and talks about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. He was inspired by Wilson's 14 points at the end of World War I, where it was calling for nations to recognize other nations as being independent, and everyone getting to trade freely and be free and not have to go to war with one another. And so Ho Chi Minh thought that because a lot of American ideals had influenced him, that they would support Ho Chi Minh in gaining independence for Vietnam. But the United States couldn't really support him because Ho Chi Minh, at the end of the day, was communist. And because this was the time of the Cold War, the U.S. was like, hey, basically, we appreciate the sentiment, but you're a communist and you're going to be seeking the support of not only the Soviet Union, but also China, which at this point has also become communist. By 1956, the Geneva Accord is going to get involved, and what they decided is that Vietnam should be allowed to have free elections, meaning that the people should get to decide what type of nation they end up being. And the United States, not happy about this whatsoever, because what they realize is that if the Vietnamese people are indeed allowed to vote for their own government, they're going to vote for a communist government. And again, this is the time of the containment policy. We have to contain communism from spreading. We can't let it happen. So what the United States is going to do is they're going to set up an anti-communist government in the South. That's going to be this green area here. And this is going to be led by Diem, who the U.S. ends up supporting. Not really liking, but he was really kind of their only ally at the time. A little bit about Diem. A lot of his family members are going to be put in charge of the government. It's mostly him and his brother that have a lot of power. And we'll get into it in about a minute or two, but he was not very popular with the South Vietnamese people. So not only do we have the containment policy taking place, but there was also a fear of this domino theory, that if South Vietnam were to turn communist, not only does that mean that the containment policy is officially failing, but it also means that surrounding countries like Laos, Cambodia, Thailand, Burma, India, and Pakistan will also turn communist. So if we go back to this map here, you can see Thailand here, Cambodia, Laos, India, and Pakistan would be more towards this way. But it becomes known as the domino theory, that if one country turns communist, then all these other countries are going to turn communist as well. And what this means is that communism is spreading. The Soviet Union is winning. And for the United States, they really did not want that to happen. When we look at the Vietnam War, if you're looking at the year of 1955, it's officially going to start under Eisenhower. But by 1960, November of 1960, John F. Kennedy is officially going to be elected as the President of the United States. When he does that, he decides that he wants to go ahead and get an evaluation of Vietnam. It wasn't something that he started, but it was something that he inherited. And he really knew that he had to kind of pay attention to what was going on in Vietnam. Because by the time the white papers come out in December of 1961, it looked as if Kennedy was indeed losing the Cold War. The Berlin Wall had started to be built. Bay of Pigs was an utter and complete disaster for the United States. And so Kennedy really needed to understand what was going on in Vietnam. Because again, the North Vietnamese were really had the support of not only the Soviet Union, but the Chinese as well. So Kennedy, he's going to send in a group of men to assess the situation in Vietnam. And what they realize is that the Diem's government in the South, nobody likes him. It's not very stable. It's essentially a ticking time bomb. He's only going to be able to remain in power for so long. And that if you want to really stop the spread of communism in not just, North Vietnam, but South Vietnam as well, you need troops on the ground. And Kennedy's going to refuse this. He wants to try to avoid a war as long as possible. What he ends up doing is he ends up sending in advisors into the South Vietnamese, and he also ends up sending money in the hopes that he can prevent a war from really breaking out. The other thing is that we're looking at the opposition to Diem. As I mentioned, Diem, who is the leader in South Vietnam, not popular at all. What's going to end up being formed is the Viet Cong, which becomes known as a guerrilla army. It brought communists and non-communists together to fight Diem's rule. There were some people who didn't necessarily believe in communism, but they didn't like Diem because Diem was going to be really brutal to the Buddhists, and Buddhism was the most popular religion in Vietnam. Something you have to understand about people who are in power: when you're in power, you can use fear tactics and things like that. And yes, that might get you in power for so long. But in order to remain in power, people have to like you. If people don't like you, chances are you're not going to last very long in power. And unfortunately, a lot of people were not liking Diem. And so because of that, the U.S. is kind of well aware of the fact that it's only a matter of time before Diem's reign is going to come crashing down. The Viet Cong is made up of a guerrilla army. What a guerrilla army means, it's people that aren't necessarily militarily trained. So we have in the United States, we obviously have a military. If somebody like me were to all of a sudden go to Iraq because I wanted to, fight in the Middle East, I would be considered part of a guerrilla army. I have no formal training. Even though I'm a United States citizen, I'm not necessarily affiliated with the United States Army. And essentially with the guerrilla army, although some of the people that were in that guerrilla army were militarily trained, some of them weren't. Some of them were just civilians who really wanted to do their part to get rid of Diem, especially in the South. So like I said, Diem really becomes a failed leader because most of the people in Vietnam, they did not like him whatsoever. Anyone who spoke out against him, he oftentimes would throw them into jail. He had angered a lot of the Buddhists. One of the things that Diem tried to do to try to make sure that the South Vietnamese were protected from communism and the North Vietnamese is that he would have a lot of the Buddhists sort of move to similar areas, trying to set up kind of like a camp. And the idea with the camp was that if everyone was sort of huddled together, that the communism wouldn't be allowed to spread. The problem is that in Buddhist cultures, they really believe in staying as close to your ancestors as possible. So if somebody had lived in like the same area since the year 1800, a family in the 1950s would continue to live in that area. So when they got forced to move, a lot of them felt that their culture was being disrespected. And so what happened is that a lot of the Buddhists are going to get angry, and a lot of them are going to start protesting. If you look at this image here, this is what we call self-immolation, and what it means is that people light themselves on fire and protest. It's a very brutal way of doing things, but this is what a few of the Buddhists started doing. So here in this picture, this is one of the first Buddhist monks to light himself on fire in front of Diem as a way to protest his regime. And he wouldn't be the first. You would have a few other Buddhist monks that would end up doing the exact same thing as well. And what made matters even worse is that it looked like Diem's government wasn't taking this very seriously. Diem's sister-in-law had kind of made the remarks that if the monks wanted to have another barbecue, she'll gladly provide the gas, meaning that she was cool with them burning themselves and she didn't really care what it was that they were protesting. And by this point, once the Buddhist monks are lighting themselves on fire as a protest, again, the U.S. is seeing the writing on the wall with Diem. They kind of realize we can't continue to support this guy. So there's going to be some generals in South Vietnam who are going to reach out to the CIA. And basically what they tell the CIA is, we want Diem out. We want his brother out. We want to kill him. We essentially want to assassinate him and remove him from power. And what the CIA told him was, hey, we can't necessarily support you in killing Diem and his brother. However, we're not going to stop you either. And so by November 1st of 1963, the U.S. officially kind of organizes the coup. Although they didn't necessarily organize it, they definitely did support it. Kind of something very straight out of like a Jason Bourne movie, and assassinating political leaders. But Diem's going to be assassinated. They're going to put forth a new leader, but nobody's going to like him either. That's one big problem that the United States has, is that when they kind of get control of other countries, they put in leaders that nobody likes. So you look at Batista and Cuba. The reason Castro was able to, take over was nobody really liked Batista. Same thing happens in Vietnam. Nobody really likes Diem. Even when the United States took out Saddam Hussein out of Iraq, they put someone in charge that nobody really liked. And so the U.S. kind of has a consistent problem of putting people in charge who may be friendly with the Americans, but aren't necessarily friendly with the actual people that they're ruling. Actually, we'll stop there.